Hi, everyone. We do seem to have sound. I'm seeing little bars moving. It's a good thing.
Hello,
Hey,
hello.
Jay. It is Saturday night. That means it is time for the weekly dig. For the first time in a couple of weeks,
Yeah.
we had a bit of a break there between illness and conventions and all sorts of great stuff going on.
Woot.
Great and not so great stuff.
Yeah.
You may notice I don't have the regular thing. I'm just drinking water tonight. There's a reason for that, which I won't go into.
Kidney health is important.
Yes.
Bladder health
Yes.
is always important. Hydrate, kids. Always hydrate.
Hydrate.
To quote Mr. Science Theater, diarrhea is like a storm raging inside you. It's not what I have, but I just always love that.
Oh, wow. That's a hell of a quote.
For anyone new to the stream, this is a live show where we dig into anime, old and new. I am Brent. These are my amazing co-hosts. John, say hi, John.
Hi, John.
And
Konnichiwa, everyone.
yes, and Steve, say hi, Steve.
Hello, Steve. Hello.
So let us start our dig tonight by analyzing a TV series that we all watched over the past couple of weeks, the 1979 Anne of Green Gables, which I have popped up here. Directed by Isao Takahata with a lot of assistance by Hayao Miyazaki. He did layout, he did story, a bunch of other stuff here. It's funny, I actually came across an academic article about this earlier in the week and got really frustrated because it basically completely ignored Takahata. It was like, when Miyazaki made Anne of Green Gables, I'm like, excuse me, no. But it is hard to tell kind of in a lot of these things, just kind of whose responsibility was whose. So, you know.
Right.
But yes, this is, so for historical purposes, you may hear this being called one of the World Masterpiece Theater anime, which were adaptations of famous children's books. It's a little complicated. World Masterpiece Theater actually was technically like turned into a brand right after Anne came out, and then Anne was kind of grafted in as a World Masterpiece Theater anime, kind of like Nausicaa with Ghibli.
Right.
And so there are a couple of other like book to anime adaptations that are kind of retroactively pulled in, but Anne is considered the first World Masterpiece Theater anime. But again, kind of provenance is a little complicated. Takahata and Miyazaki had long been trying to do adaptations like this. They'd been pursuing Pippi Longstocking for the longest time. Couldn't get that made, unfortunately. Anne was one of their big dreams that actually got made. And let's start by talking about this opening credit sequence because I think it is kind of a great indication of what the show is. Because the theme is this.
Sensei, question?
Yes.
Question, Sensei.
Yes, sir.
What happened to the Nippon Animation Company Limited?
Oh, that's a great
Was
question.
that, I forgot to look it up.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And it's like, so did it just merge into something else, or was it a specific Anne of Green Gables project formed, made it,
Yeah.
closed when it was done?
Oh no, it still exists.
Oh,
Yeah.
because I don't
just
think I've ever paid attention to the end
Yeah.
of a lot of animes to notice whether I've seen that name again.
Yeah, no, it's one of those interesting companies. I'm actually, frankly, just looking it up now to refresh myself. Founded in 1962, and is known for producing a lot of the World Masterpiece Theater anime. So that was kind of their specialty. They have also done a lot of work on other things. So like Hunter x Hunter, the 1999 version, Corrector Yui, Antique Bakery, Hyako. But it's just, assistants here and there, kind of working with the existing studios. Some films, TV specials, OVAs here and there, and so forth. There's also a department that works on a lot of Beyblade.
Okay, wow.
Yeah. So, but as I'll put it this way, Nippon Animation is known for producing numerous anime series based on works of Western literature, such as Anne of Green Gables and The Adventures of Tom Sawyer, and so forth and so on. So this is kind of their best known work.
Okay.
Yeah, Jason, it's kind of a brand company. They kind of have anime done, but you kind of know what they do. So yes, opening credit sequence to Anne of Green Gables. which is Anne in a trap, I believe it's called.
A gig.
A gig. There we go. With a horse, just clopping along with this very bright, upbeat theme song.
Yep.
As she goes through, very cheerful. And one thing I like about it, and then you see her in the different seasons, which I think is again kind of representative of how much time passes over the course of the show.
Yep.
And then that wonderful final imagery, as she's going along, is you see that it is soaring over the road. It's not actually on the road.
Right.
Which I think nicely represents her kind of imagination and all that kind of stuff. And that's it. Like, you don't have the characters, turning to face the audience. You don't have any of the typical anime stuff. It's just Anne driving along. What does this opening...
they set the kind of fantasy early on because Anne is literally standing on the axle.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's not like a foot box. There's not a chair. There's nothing.
Mm-hmm.
She's just standing on the axle, going along. Like, okay, I get this part of fantasy here. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
But I will say that because this is the first time that I've seen it, and went through this sequence, I'm like going, Ghibli.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's funny watching this, and then especially watching a bit of Heidi, you realize, this is basically Totoro beta.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It very much feels like a lot of those things kind of come back in their later work.
But to your point, Brent, about not showing the traditional, the the action in the beginning and everyone's jumping in and everything. It's just this very placid movement of her, going through all this stuff, and it's just nice and different and accessible, I think, to kids. It's something that kids can go, oh, hey, there's not a whole lot of crap going in my face right now. And it's just, this is Anne of Green Gables. Here is Anne. And this is the wild ride we're going to go on with her imagination, so to speak. So, I thought that was it was refreshing from also, present day, present time.
No, totally. And I mean, it's the late 70s, so things haven't quite coalesced in terms of like what an anime opening credit sequence is. But you certainly had templates by this point. But yeah, it is definitely refreshing.
Well, so it presents for an audience a kinetic movement. So you've got things going on to follow, but it's not like hyper kinetic. So you're not getting like a ton of data dumped right at you that's kind of distracting.
Yeah.
So it's like it just puts you in the right mindset as you're getting into the show.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's also wise because it's getting you also into the setting of this is not Japan. This is not this is very much 19th century, very rural Canada, and getting you kind of used to that environment. And then we jump into just these speaking of that point, just sort of random seeming shots of 19th century life, of just boats in the harbor and horses and such. And then we cut to our first shot here of Anne. And this is something that definitely stuck out at me the first time I watched it, and then again when I was rewatching it. And I only started watching it like a couple of years ago, and I've just recently gone back to finish it out. Anne's not that cheerful in this opening shot.
No.
And so I think the contrast between the cheerful opening credit sequence and this girl on the boat is like, oh, her situation is not what it is there. And then our omnipresent, ever-present narrator comes in to let us know a little bit what's going on. Let's talk a bit about that, because I found the narrator kind of odd. Narrator comes in and does a lot of, sometimes it's fine, but there's a certain amount of, Anne feels sad. Like, yeah, we can see that. But also, story about a girl written by a woman. They got a guy to narrate.
Well, it is 1979.
Well, I guess, yeah.
So there are certain.
Yeah.
certain things within that milieu that's
To that point,
a go-to kind of thing.
I'm impressed that the opening credit sequence isn't some, male crooner going on, or something like that. Seems like every anime opening of the 1970s was some man. But yeah, I wonder if it's. I think John, you'd be exactly right. Just narrators are all men in these. Just live with it. Yeah.
Sorry, you just put in my head the opening song to Gundam, Mobile Suit Gundam. Rage.
Yes,
rage,
that's the thing.
Aguro, rage.
Okay.
Oh God. Putting that with Anne.
Aguro.
Son of Dodge.
There we go.
You know?
And there are certainly days when, every anime credit sequence today is done by a, 13-year-old girl where I'm like, well, I could do some men too, but whatever. Just seems like an odd choice.
Well, I mean, if you're doing something that's world masterpiece theater, all I can think is like, what the Alistair Cook?
Ah, yes.
That used to do, PBS masterpiece theater, and it's like, okay, you're very serious. This is a serious world literature book, so you have a very serious male narrator who's delivering this pertinent information to you about this small girl.
Yeah, that's
very serious. Oh, very serious.
I think it makes sense. I totally see that. And so we start establishing our characters. Matthew coming to pick up Anne, the little boy coming to pick up.
Yep. As he rides through the Norman Rockwell.
Yes, exactly. So let's talk about that a little bit. Because one of the things I think that does make Anne stand apart is the sort of visual style. These backgrounds. And I think you nailed this, John, when you described this as, what was it, like a typical anime just set in a Norman Rockwell painting?
Yeah. It's like the anime is laid over Norman Rockwell art.
Yes.
And it's just like, wow, the beauty of the barbed wire on the poles that are going on, they're birch tree poles.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And you're looking at this, the beauty of Green Gables when you get there is you're seeing the turned bullseye corners on the framing of the door frames. There is a tremendous amount of really great background work done to this that it's like, wow, you didn't have to go that nuts with this. You could have dialed it back and then just done your entire character focus. Like, no. You've done the thing.
Yeah.
Boy, have you ever.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I feel like when I was watching it, I was just like, I felt like it was, first of all, it was beautiful. The backgrounds are beautiful. As they're going through it, I was like, okay, we are establishing this is not Japan in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
This is not going to be Japan. And there are different colors, that's why I was really impressed with it, because even the botany of it seemed right for, Canada, and the way that they were introducing Anne on the ship and going through the harbor too, and also making a point that she's going to Prince Edward Island. Yeah. That kind of thing, and just all that. And I was just like, yeah, this is definitely not Japan. There's no shrine. There's no shrine on the hill.
Yep.
Right.
But there is a wild cherry tree.
There's a wild cherry tree. Yes.
Which did cause me when I saw that they had that at the train station. I was like, do cherry trees grow in? Apparently they can. Yeah. Apparently that's fine. But I thought that was very interesting talking about the wild cherry tree and then the shining
like a shining waters
they go through.
Oh yeah.
That's all apple blossom. And it's like, oh, I see. You've rooted. Now this production is Japanese. So there's cherry tree. Everybody look at the sakura. Beat. Now you know where we are. And now we go to apple blossoms. Because that's, I guess, more North American, more Canada, I guess.
And apparently Canada, it has a lot of lavender.
Yes.
A lot of lavender coloring. I had not noticed that.
Which I was really surprised the fertility of Prince Edward Island, considering
it's a kind of rock.
Yeah, kind of up there a little bit in the world. Like I would have thought that the verdant farm fields would have been probably more southerly part of Canada, but that's fine. That's fine. I'm pleased with the outcome. I don't really care about that. So.
For what it's worth, like in the original novel, like that is a cherry tree outside her window.
The Snow Queen is a cherry tree.
Yeah, the Snow Queen. Yeah, it is a cherry tree canonically. So I haven't checked to see if they like literally call it out as a cherry tree by the station. in the book.
I think she did because she said,
Well, I mean in the book. I'm not sure if that's one of the things that they inserted, like you say, she saw a tree in the book to a cherry tree in the anime. Who knows?
Because I thought Snow Queen was an apple blossom tree, apple tree that she called out to. I didn't realize that canonically was actually another cherry tree.
I believe that is also a cherry tree. Yeah.
Interesting.
With all the little cherubs.
Yeah. That was, Scott, I had to rewind at that point when the cherubs are floating by. I'm like,
yeah.
Am I seeing things?
Oh, yeah.
What's going on here?
So let's get there. So Anne shows up, and I do love this moment where she gets up, she gets off the train, and she suddenly starts to smile. And it's that moment when she's not around other people, when she's able to kind of be alone and be by herself, that she starts to kind of go. And you look at the attention to detail here, the kind of the plain sackcloth dress that she's wearing, just, very much getting across this is, not a wealthy little girl.
But she has a smart little chapeau, though.
She does.
Yes.
So she is not without fashion.
Exactly. No. She's very fashion conscious. There's no question about that. And then we begin I believe it's a 2.5-minute sequence of Anne at the train station.
Yeah.
Yep.
Where she's there, she gets a little bored, she walks over, she sits down. To your point, she sees the cherry tree, she walks along the rail. Matthew drives up, she sees that cherry tree, and we just sit here. There's no dialogue. I believe there's no music. It's just background sounds.
Yeah. Sounds of nature.
Sounds of nature. Of Anne, just getting into Anne's head a little bit. And it is such a bold move for your first episode. Because remember, in animation, none of this is real. And the temptation is to fill it with music and sound and dialogue. Right. So folks, are in your world, but to just focus us on the animation and hope it sells. Dang, Takahata.
Well, I got the kind of sense from it that you have her on the boat and she doesn't look happy. Mm-hmm. And very much the boat is bringing her to this new world that she's going to be in. Mm-hmm. She has now completed the next journey of that by the train, and she has gotten off at where she believes her new world is going to happen. Mm-hmm. So that, and I know there's been anime songs that I've purchased because the sound, the way that they've done it, gives you an expansive experience where it's like you hear it start off in a place and then it increases the way that your aural experience is happening. It's like, oh my gosh, this is like head-blowingly, it's like gaining in size. This, in its quiet moment, is that your head is expanded because her world is now begun to grow.
Yes.
And it's just like, you don't need any other noise because literally you're seeing psychologically her world just kind of going.
Yeah, exactly.
And
as we find out later, and I don't think it's a spoiler, the orphanage where she was living for a long time had no trees, like little sickly trees that weren't growing anywhere.
Right. Yeah.
So her
the front yard had like one sickly little tree.
Fenced off even.
Yeah, exactly. So seeing all of this gorgeous nature, absolutely just kind of is clearly, oh yes, thank you, I love it.
And
then a much bigger world because it's bigger than that little fenced-in
yard,
fenced-in tree.
Yeah.
When I was watching that and just the quietness and just watching her go, kind of looking at the tree, and you're not getting anything what's going on in her head. There's no exposition. There's no. So later on, she explains why she's looking at the tree, what she was going to plan to do if nobody showed up, and that was perfectly acceptable to her because that's what she kind of actually wanted to do, and sleep in the tree basically. And
better than going back to the orphanage,
right? Yeah. And so, but I'm not gonna lie, and I'm not really trying to be funny here, but I had a Dragon Ball Z moment where it's bear with me.
When she did the Kamehameha?
No. It's just because the episode continues that path, not necessarily of quietness, but a prolonged, here's the scene, and it goes on, and it goes
Oh,
on, and it goes on.
right.
Gotcha.
You know, and so, you know, it's like, you know, the Dragon Ball Z where we go through 5 episodes of Goku doing like the spirit bomb, raising
Charles
his-
charging the spirit bomb.
you know.
Yeah.
And
Gotcha.
it reminds me of sports anime, of that prolonged moment, you know, of the serve happening, and we get 12 people's reactions to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, this is Dan looking at a tree going, I'm kind of liking this. This is a lot better.
Yeah, exactly. And so Matthew shows up. Anne is, of course, very hopeful, and again, I love how much they're revealing here. It's something that Takahata is very good at, is introducing characters through their actions to give you an idea of their personality. So like Anne is clearly curious, but she's not like running over and like tugging at his sleeves. So there's a politeness there. She just kind of waits. Matthew obviously realizes that his watch has stopped. So he's very late, comes over, and again, revealing Matthew is not the most with it guy in the world.
Yeah.
But he means well, and discovers that, no, it's a girl.
And I love all the Ghibli-esque mustaches.
Yes, absolutely. Very much. Oh,
where it's really great when you don't have to animate lip flaps.
Yep.
You know, you can just stick a giant mustache on people.
I will say it gets a little distracting later in the show, because as the show goes on, Matthew and Marilla age a little bit, and their hair color grows lighter, and they clearly had a difficult time keeping track of that on the paint department. So while he's talking, his mustache will change color and get slightly, grayer or darker as he's talking.
His chameleon mustache.
Right, exactly. And just like every couple episodes, it happens again. I'm like, okay, it's okay, it's fine.
Well, we can walk beyond this. We'll be okay.
Exactly. Yes.
That's great.
And so Anne shows up, and they share a moment. And again, to your point, I love how Anne, reveals this thing about what she wants to do in the tree, and then sakura petals start falling, literally. They surround the image, and we realize what's happened here now is that Anne has pulled Matthew into her world, just with her just sort of chattiness, and he's kind of been very much surprised and kind of taken by this little girl, which he clearly was not expecting to do that day.
Yeah. Well, I think anybody other than Marilla is probably much more exciting.
Right, exactly, yeah.
Well, watching Matthew through the whole scene, through all the scenes of like taking the carriage back to Avonlea, and just talking, going through all the visuals, and her seeing the cupids and the cherubs and all that, and but if you, Brian, I think I was saying this to you on Discord, blink and you miss it. If you have to watch his face, Matthew's face, because even though it's like the giant dwarf mustache, the way that Takara has his eyes move around, and
yes,
like
his eyes are very expressive,
and it's just like even though he really doesn't say much at all, but it's just is like saying when he's surprised being taken into the world, he's just like, okay, a lot of facial stuff, like. And then, when she says these outlandish things, you can actually almost see the eye holes. You're just like, oh, yeah. Like, okay.
This is it.
Okay.
We'll see if we can get it, because here she's talking about her hair color, and how sad it is, and how all that.
Her eternal sorrow.
Yeah, this will be her eternal sorrow. We'll see if we can actually find. Yeah, there it is. And Matthew literally turns to the camera and is like, okay, all right. And for those who haven't seen it, basically, Anne is been all chirpy and happy, and then she says, "What color is my hair?" "Well, red." I knew it. Yes. I can imagine so many much better things for me, and not having the freckles and all that stuff. But I just can't imagine not having red hair. It shall be my eternal sorrow.
I read that once. What kind of books are you reading?
I think it's one of the things that makes Anne so charming is that she has these sort of outlandish expectations of herself and of society and so forth. That she has because she's a little kid. You know, she's I think 11. At this point. So. And again, rough life. And
so say because for 11, despite some of the little wacky things she says, she's kind of keeping it together for an 11-year-old that's been through a lot of stuff.
Yes. And we find out more about that in episode 4. But we're being told a lot about Anne's personality through what she isn't doing. Exactly that point. And realizing and getting back to what you were saying, Steve, what I think is really interesting is how like her world is expanding. When you see it through the lens of not only was she in the orphanage, when she was with families, she was caring for all these other little kids.
Yeah.
So now she's not only in this larger environment, she's alone.
She's getting to be the kid now.
Right. Yeah. You know, she has time for herself all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And I think that's very much what she's enjoying. And then
much to Matthew's chagrin.
Exactly. She will. She will not shut up. No, at all.
Well, I'd say when you see Matthew getting there, it's not like he's whistling. He's just sitting in the trap and he's just going along, dead silence. And it's like now it's like blah, 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 blah. You know, it's like, oh boy, here.
I kept have expecting like a hand just to come
Exactly.
like,
and then we get the moment where they go into this beautiful white environment, and we go into the Shining White Way, I think she calls it.
Yep. So.
Takahata not only lets us see that, he pulls us into Anne's world. We not only see all of these beautiful things and Anne's just shock, we get a Fantasia moment.
Yes, very much.
As all of these little fairies show up, and they literally just, sweep Anne off her feet with this gorgeous orchestral piece playing. Very melodramatic.
Yes.
Anne's clothing changes. She gets a white dress all of a sudden. And then again,
which I was trying to figure out whether this is like, is this somewhere like a cast forward to the point that Anne is envisioning herself as a bride, perhaps,
gotcha.
or is this one of those things where it's like, oh, there's a reason why people up until the 20th century wore dark clothing. It's because it was next to impossible to keep whites white.
Yeah.
So is this future vision of Anne and this brideful kind of thing, or is this future vision of Anne being like, now I don't have to wear sack dress anymore. Now honestly, I'm going to have a family, and I'm going to be able to wear. It'll be so well and so fine. Mm-hmm. I'll be able to wear white. Yeah. Like, oh, could be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's it because it's, God, that dress, sack dress. I mean, literally, it's just like when you first see it, you're just like going, you're almost thanking God for the hat. Because there's the personality because the dress has no personality.
Yeah.
And then she's seeing this brand new bright world. So what is she going to wear in this brand new bright world of hers? Well, she's going to wear white. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Is it after Labor Day though?
Well, she even has little like flowers in the hat.
Yeah.
Now, which I like a lot. And then one thing I find really cool is that, when it's over, her mood changes. Like, she's not chatty all of a sudden. Like, it literally overwhelms her, and it takes her a few moments to recover. Which is, again, just very, very childlike of getting filled up with emotion.
And having to control it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You figure she's very chatty, but she's not screaming, yelling, crying, anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like she's been overwhelmed by the experience, but she doesn't break down because of it.
Mm-hmm.
She gets introspective and just gets quiet, deals with it internally. It's like, yeah, your experience would have really made that your only option.
Yeah, well, and it also shows a certain strength of character, right?
Yeah.
That she can take these things in and process them.
Right.
Yeah. And so we chug along, and we get a bit more, bless you, as Matthew realizes, even further, oh crap.
Yeah. I love the choice of words that the narrator used. And Matthew sobered up, like he was drunk this whole time.
Yeah. Which I think is again a great. You're absolutely right. A great choice of words. That Anne is kind of intoxicating. In that way.
Just his reactions. What is that pond's called? Oh, that's Brown's Pond. This is like the most uninteresting name. And
the Lake of Shining Waters.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay.
Barry's Pond. Well, who's it named after? Barry.
Barry.
lives next to it. In that house. Welcome to adult world, Anne.
Yeah.
it's not so magical.
And which again, I think gets into this idea that Anne is being introduced into, it's not simply, I go from poor little orphan Annie into, wild open world of adventure and greatness. It's like, no, this is Barry's Pond, and just it's a rural farm environment.
Yeah.
What can you do? But we clearly, Anne has charmed the socks off of Matthew here, poor Matthew. As they go home, and we stop there.
Yeah.
That's the end of the episode. So, 22 minutes of Anne getting picked up at a train station.
Yeah.
Yep.
Kame.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's nuts. And this is the weird thing. Like, yes, they're obviously trying to adapt the story, but none of this felt stretched out to me at all.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it very clearly establishes what you're going to get out of backgrounds. This is look at all the things that we've gotten through in this 22 minutes. This is what you can expect now. Cool.
Yep.
We know that Anne is very chatty. We know that she's, obviously extremely relieved to be out of the orphanage. That Matthew is not very communicative and is not able to master the situation. So, that sets the groundwork for how things are going to roll from there.
Exactly.
So that
the
works out
narrator
pretty
says,
nicely.
Yeah, even the narrator says that Matthew doesn't really deal with women other than his sister. He gets uncomfortable, and then suddenly here's Chatty Cathy just like right next to him. He's just like, I could just imagine just going, oh, please God. No, God, why? But no, he gets bewitched, and he falls into the world of Anne, and he's enjoying it.
Yeah,
actually, he's enjoying it, and as he's going through the ride, he's kind of seeing what he's seen through his entire life. And his little girl's just like, oh no, that's a shining lake. That's not Barry's Pond.
Yeah.
He's just like, oh, well, yeah, it kind of does look kind of nice, doesn't it? Yeah, that the avenue that there's back. Yeah, that was kind of nice. I don't know what you're talking about, these cherubs, but okay. The leaves look nice. And then he gets up to the end of the episode, and then that's when. And it lures you, the watcher, the viewer, into this as well, because then suddenly it's a crash stop at the end where he's just like looking at the door, and he's just like, yeah, explain this one. It's not going to end well because she's a girl and the boy's supposed to be going to do this, and this might not be good. And episode 2 is pretty much goes along that
way. Exactly. And Takahata does not let us off easily, as Anne keeps going, I'm so glad to be finally, adopted, and it's going to be great, it's going to be wonderful. It's like,
everything's beautiful, life is wonderful.
Exactly.
And then there's Marilla.
Yes. Episode 2. So we get a little bit of a recap here. as they stop on the Lake of Shining Waters, and explore that a little bit. And what's interesting here, by the way, is, which I didn't realize until again going back and rewatching it, is they actually go back and extend the previous episode. They didn't stop on the Lake of Shining Waters in episode 1, but they add this extra little bit of them here. And again, think of the work required to draw the reflection in the water. That's not free. That's not a special effect in your software.
Yeah. Copy and paste. Wait a minute. No,
No.
1979.
Yep.
No.
Yep. And it's
1979.
in different colors, so you got to color that. Just a lovely little moment of her just experiencing this new environment, the fresh air. It's lovely. And then they get back to Green Gables. We also get more about the locals and about having neighbors and a potential friend for Anne, which excites her even further. And this wonderful little magic moment where Anne asks how close they are, and Matthew goes, "It's right over there." And she goes, No, let me guess. And she points out Green Gables. Because she just knows what it is, but
Damn you,
Takahata just
damn you,
turning the knife.
Yeah.
And granted, I'm sure that was in the original book, which I'm gonna have to go back and read now.
Because it really is like that. Oh, it's so cute. She figured it out. She's in love with all this, and she figured it. Oh,
She's
God,
meant.
you know what's gonna happen. Oh,
Right.
God. Oh God.
Which we'll come back to later, even further. Also, it should be pointed out, note the use of color here. Notice how it's now evening, and so all the colors are more drab.
Yep.
So they're working on all these different sort of color levels as well. And so, so Matthew opens the door, and in comes Anne to this little room, which we will all become very familiar with over the course of the show.
Yes, we will.
And then
I love that stove. I have no idea. I'm assuming that's an oven portion in the stovepipe area.
Yep.
So.
Yep.
Interesting.
Like baked bread in there and such.
Yeah.
And then Marilla comes in, and again, who they communicate. She comes in. She's shocked. She asks, Matthew, what's going on? We cut back to Anne's reaction, and she immediately knows. Yeah.
And she points almost accusatory, like.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, Marilla, the great communicator that she is, comes in and says, "Where's the boy?" Mm-hmm. And it's just like, that's it. And you just watch this, and I'm just like going, okay, I'm watching a kid's anime, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm watching this, and I'm like going, God, this would be scarring if my niece watched this. Yeah. Oh my God. Because Marilla literally is just like, the hell's this? What's going on here? You were supposed to bring a boy. What's this girl doing here? And that's, can you feel any more unwanted at that point?
Yeah. Yep. Which is, again, I'm sure very much Takahata's point is that, this is very much a feminist anime in a lot of ways, about how girls are treated, even by another girl, like by a woman. And in fairness, seeing it from the Cuthbert's perspective, like, Matthew's getting up there. We learn later he has some heart problems. Like, they need a boy. Like, they from their perspective, they need a worker who can work the field. There ain't no way they're gonna bring in a girl and have her work in the fields. That's just not gonna work socially. And so this is a non-starter. Like the idea of bringing in a girl is just not what they need as a family. And so that's where she's coming from, as kind of unfair it is to Anne. But yes, it's actually really interesting watching it because you can really see from everybody's perspective where they're coming from. And it's the kind of the classic sort of therapist perspective of everyone in this is doing they're all doing their best. Marilla coming from her perspective, she doesn't realize how hurtful this is to Anne. But because she's not even paying attention to Anne, it's like, Matthew, what the hell?
Matthew could have cut this to the quick if he had just at the train station been like, "We need to get on the telegraph," or this is not going to work. Yeah. Versus like getting her on, bringing her the whole damn way here, and it's like, oh, that's just Matthew. That's insensitive of Matthew in that regard as well.
And you can see there's a little bit of that in Marilla too. Of Matthew, why did you bring her here? Like that was not the best choice. But yeah, and
should have ditched her in the chariot.
Wow, fine.
Sister of the year goes to Marilla.
Yeah, exactly. And so Anne has a bit of a breakdown, and again, thank you, Takahata. Yes, she is sad. Yes, it is bad, but he does make her go a little over the top in this moment.
Yeah.
Where she just falls to the table and cries and tears pour out of her, and Marilla goes over, and Anne just is just heartbroken, obviously, but there is a bit of a okay, calm down a little, maybe calm down a little.
We have no prior experience with children, so I have no
exactly,
idea what to do.
Exactly. And then further, inserted or ramped up when Marilla asked her, "Well, what's your name?" And she says, "Can you call me Cordelia?"
Yeah. That's a name I really like. What?
That was for me a left turn. I was just like, what? Where did we go? Wait a minute. Huh?
And
why not? Why not say something wacky? Because Marilla already is like pretty much going to go out the door anyway. So it's like, she could have started yammering something crazy if she really wanted to, because she knows what the writing on the wall is at this exact moment.
Exactly. Yeah. But it does cut the tension, and it does give us some relief from the drama of the scene. As Anne's imagination just pops up, and again to that to what we were saying about before, that sort of childlike swing of emotion, where she's crying one moment and then the next moment is "Call me Cordelia." It's such a lovely name, It's like whoa, mood swing. Poor Marilla just does not know what to do. And so they have they have dinner because. That's not awkward.
No. Let's all three of us sit here and stare at each other.
Yeah.
This would be awesome.
Mm-hmm.
One's going, I can't really eat because I'm so torn up inside. There's all these beautiful things, and they're going to be taken away from me. Matthew's just going, kind of like the girl, but my sister is so intimidating, and I'm just going to sit there with it underneath my mustache. Yeah. And Marilla's just like, what the hell is going on here? I have no conceptual idea of what to do next. Let's have dinner.
Well, and
just stare daggers at this small girl.
Pass the salt.
Yeah. Well, and you think if they'd gotten a boy, he would have been mostly Matthew's responsibility. Right. So Marilla wouldn't. This really wouldn't have been a big deal for her. But now suddenly a girl. Oh, this would be under my aegis. Very, very complicated.
So I was trying to think. I was like, I guess 19th century. If you had a large farm family, you would have had a division of labor where the boys would have gone to the field, and then you would have had the girls that would have collected the chicken eggs. They would have done like lesser heavy duty, but still farm work.
Yeah.
So it's like I'm looking at this like she could do everything on this farm, but they conceptually can't wrap around her like hitching up a plow and getting the team out. Yeah. And it's like I get now it's like, you could do everything else, but we need you to do we needed a boy to do that thing, that specific heavy duty thing.
Yeah.
Like, damn. And narrow-minded 19th century.
Well, and like they say later, Matthew's like, well, she could help you out in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Right. We're like, that's the division of responsibility. And again, kind of in fairness, even if they could wrap their heads around it, imagine what everybody else in their community would say if they saw, a girl in a dress out hitching up, and doing farm work. What the hell? What the heck are you doing?
Well,
in pants and heavy boots.
Well, they have already established that part of the neighborhood is just like, why are you adopting?
Right.
It's weird enough that you two are living together, but why are you doing this?
Yeah.
You know, and I know it's supposed to serve the exposition as to why they're doing it.
Yeah.
Matthew's getting up, blah blah blah, but it still also establishes that you're not supposed to have kids. You two.
Yeah. Right.
This is not a thing. And when you stop and think about it for a second, you know, that really is. I never read the books, and you know, I just had a passing glance at the television series, but you know, it really is, when you stop and think about it, kind of weird to have, like, okay, a spinster and her brother who doesn't deal well with other women,
Right.
living on their own in this farm, and the two of them that are brother and sister are adopting a child.
Yeah.
That's just odd, because they can't be obviously married, but that's one of the things I kept having to remind myself while watching it, is going, oh yeah, right, yeah, they're not married. They're not, they're brother and sister.
Yeah.
They're not married. This is a very unique situation. So social norms are being very, very tread on like eggshells, because, you know, it's already a weird situation that the community looks at it,
Yep.
you know, in that way.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to remember some other stories of 19th century people where it's like spinster sisters living together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like there are extant stories of people like that,
Sure.
and they're not to be mean. They're, you know, 19th century. Most of these people are probably long since dead, but they were considered a bit weird.
Right.
Two
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
unmarried ladies living together that were sisters. It was less weird, but it was just like, why did they never get married? Why are they, you know, why do they only just stick to themselves? And it's like, so this falls into that same kind of thing. It's like your siblings, and this is a little odd.
Yeah, you can't. Not everybody can have. Not all women who are spinsters can have the Great Expectation story.
Right. Yeah.
Just and have the wedding cake sitting on the table for 27 years.
Oh.
It's a hell of a wedding cake.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so.
Mrs. Havisham, was that
Yeah,
Yes.
that's it. That's
Well done.
Mrs. Hammond.
Nice.
Good job.
Hey, I remember to think Pip.
Yeah.
See,
now I question it.
things I've learned at some point in time in the far distant past.
What surprises me is, as far as I can tell, there has yet to be an anime adaptation of Great Expectations.
Yeah, because that scene would be creepy as hell.
Well, yeah. Perfect for
Yes, it
anime.
was.
Mrs. Havisham in her old wedding dress
Yeah,
and
exactly.
serving 27-year-old kid.
But yes, so Marilla invites Anne up to this little bedroom.
I love this scene.
Love this scene. My gosh, Takahata. So she's put in there. Marilla says, "I'll leave while you change." And I'm thinking two things. I'm thinking, I'm sorry, I've been trained by anime. What am I going to see now?
Right.
And you know, I don't think at any point, I've seen this all the way up to the end, I don't think at any point in this anime series I ever see Anne's knees, much less any other part of her body.
And I think we're all okay with that.
We're all
Yes,
completely
very,
okay with that.
very
It's-
okay.
We're all okay.
Thank you, Takahata, for your restraint in that. But yeah, and then
She takes her dress off as a Sailor Moon outfit.
Right, exactly.
No! You call this masterpiece? No.
This is terrible.
but yeah, and then we just watch her look around the room, which was a really
Love
neat
it.
moment. Oh, it's
Love
great. And you just observe it.
Because you don't get that even in today's anime.
Yeah.
You don't get that. And yeah, you get people looking around a room in anime, but you don't get that way that it's done, where you're just like, it's pointed that you are looking through her eyes. You're not the viewer looking around the room with her. You are Anne looking at the room, and everything has to. It's a bare room. She's looking at three objects, and she's looking at the corners, and it's just and it's quiet, and she's just processing all these few things, and you realize that she's actually happy about this. And there's a comfort level with this.
Yeah.
But it's the way that they show that scene. And it's just like, I was like, wow, I have not seen that in forever.
Yeah. Well, and go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, you think about subsequently. This is 79.
Yeah.
So you roll the clock forward 20 years. And you have people look around a room and they go, manga.
Right.
desk, video
Right.
games, figures.
Yep.
And then when you don't have something that's like, oh, you're a total otaku, you're something, something like that, everything else is just sort of there.
Yeah.
And this is like a very, concentrated effort to look at what is really essentially not much of anything.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like a candle in a window area. It's not that there's not pictures and things and stuff drawn places and things that draw the eye. No, it's the bare simplicity of it, and that sense of that sort of awakening. It's like this is a place to her.
Yeah.
This isn't an orphanage shared with other people. This is not a house with a bunch of other kids running around. This is a space where she is in it and she occupies it.
And there's, to your point, there are no other beds.
Right.
There's no kids. There's no, this, even though we don't know yet, but we do, don't know yet that she's going to be there. It's ownership. She's just like, this could be mine. That corner is mine. That candle could be mine. This wonderful vegetable could be mine. This, oh, it's just a little, thing with the pins in it.
Yeah. And
the cushion with the pins in it. It's a wonderful thing because it's not belonging to anybody else.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's like that's an amazing use of this perspective from her, where it's like, and like I said, 20 years later, you're looking at a lot of stuff going on, and also and they're trying to visually keep you engaged that way. And it's like this is really engaging, and there's just visually not a ton to look at.
Yeah.
But it still really holds you. It's like, amazing.
And then you get her reaction, and I don't think I've ever seen this before or since an anime, ever. A character had this reaction, where she sees all this and shivers, and it's this fascinating admixture, I think, of, like you say, kind of appreciating this moment, realizing, but it's going away.
Yeah.
I'm gonna lose it, and there's this almost horror that seizes her.
Well, that moment you're reaching for that golden ring on the merry-go-round, and you miss it, and it's like that shiver is like her existential dread of missing this ring.
Right.
She's not gonna get the brass ring.
Yep. And so she proceeds to undress.
If anybody in Chatland understands the merry-go-rounds of brass rings.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah,
Apologies.
There was there used to be brass rings you could grab in a merry-go-round. Yeah.
If you were on the carousel and you paid for one ride, if you could reach out, there was a little dispenser that had a brass ring, and if you could grab that brass ring, you would get a free ride.
Yep.
So that's the reference.
Sorry. Thank you for referencing that. And so we see her getting dressed, and this wonderfully, expressively pained expression on Anne's face as she just gets her nightdress on and climbs into bed. Note she does not undo her braids, just climbs into bed.
Yeah.
And goes in there. And remember, Marilla told her, put your stuff up, put your shoes over here, put your things over there. And so Marilla comes back in, and this is, again, I think Takahata kind of foreshadowing a little bit. I think a lot of folks would expect Marilla to snap at Anne at this point and go, why didn't you do that? No. She just picks it up, puts it to one side. Because she understands.
She might have actually a heart.
Right.
Exactly. Oh, nice.
And then we get...
I'm about to kick her to the curb in the morning. So
exactly. Well, and
this little urchin should have at least folded clothes before I kick her out into the cold. Nice. Thank you, lady. Appreciate it.
And then we get punched in the gut again as she wishes Anne a good night. And Anne bursts out and says, "How dare you wish me a good night? This is the worst night of my life."
Yeah.
Oh. And again, and you feel it, but at the same time, Marilla is taken aback. This is not the way children speak to adults.
Yeah.
Right.
Which it feeds back in, because didn't the neighbor lady earlier come along and say, somebody over somewhere adopted a kid, and that kid caused like all kinds of problems.
Put strychnine in the well.
Yeah, yeah, killed them or did something terrible. And it's like that's that moment when Anne pops out of that, where she's sort of been dancing around things. She's very direct and very forward, and it's like all I could. In Marilla kind of straightening up there at that moment, all I could envision was that conversation about the strychnine.
Yeah, exactly.
That Marilla's like, oh crap, she's going to kill us all.
Right, yeah, exactly.
We're going to be Lizzie Borden.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
This is the worst night of my life. By the way, do you have an axe? Oh, no.
Oh,
not that kind of an
objects.
Yeah. Can I ask you a question? Oh, no.
Higurashi no Naku Koro ni Anne.
No.
That'd be funny as hell. No, don't stab yourself in the head.
Yeah, and so we then followed on with Matthew starting to have second thoughts, and I love how he says she's just a I forget the exact phrase he uses, but she is an interesting little thing.
Yeah.
And he just can't let go.
Well, she says, Marilla says, we're she's of no good to us because she's not a boy.
Right.
And he turns around and says, but we might be good for her.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's when you go. That's when you learn that. Okay, Matthew's on board. He's okay with this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
also, it's like Brent, you had said before, it's like he's bewitched.
Yeah.
And as much as Anne's world's opening up, Matthew's world is opening up because he never would have ever said that to Marilla at any other time in his life.
Yeah.
It's like that is a piece of his internal dialogue that like you could see in Marilla that she's just kind of like, what?
And by Matthew's standards, he's pushing pretty hard here.
Yeah, I mean, he usually just lets her walk all over. It's like he actually said something. I'm like, oh wow.
Yeah, and again, I love what Takahata does here. He doesn't then have Marilla go, well, I suppose. No, she's like, nah. Like that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not convinced, which is very, very understandable. And then he gives us a little bit more foreshadowing as Matthew goes in. And again, something I noticed only on the second viewing, as Marilla then holds her head, because we find out later that she gets headaches. And I believe in the anime that, or in the book, that is not like explained early on. But it's a very natural thing for Takahata to just kind of add in a little bit of just her, and we think, oh no, she's just what a situation, but no, it's her headaches coming on.
The headache's called Anne.
Oh yeah, oh yes, very much so.
Anne Shirley. Oh.
And so we finished out with this really interesting moment, as we see everyone in bed, and Anne has a dream. And she remembers the shining way, the white shining way, and all of the things. But did you notice? It's a completely different background this time.
Yeah.
So it's
ominous and foreboding.
Yeah. Which wonderfully represents that experience she's in. Which again means they had to go back and reshoot the entire freaking sequence.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Imagine that production meeting. Okay, we're just going to have her dream the sequence where she came down the way again. Oh, great. So we can reuse that. No. Really? Pen and ink department? You're working all weekend. Damn it.
At least you don't have to reanimate it. You just have to,
repaint it.
Yeah. Well, not repaint it, fortunately. I think all they're doing here is just laying the same cells on a new background.
Okay.
But still, it's every single cell. But it works. And again, I think if it had just been a flashback, it wouldn't have that same sense of it.
Right.
And so we move on to episode 3.
Yep.
As we have the morning breaking.
Oh, and Jay had pointed out the white dress as being a sign of childlike innocence and purity.
I like it. Mm-hmm.
Which I hadn't even thought of.
Takahata's version of nudity in another anime, is okay. Thank you, Takahata.
Awesome.
Good.
A white dress.
Yes, please do
she's
that.
naked.
More of that. More of the white dress.
Yeah, 20 years later, we're not going to get that.
Nope. And so we have, and again, this extended sequence of just nature.
Yep.
And not even nature, just various environments in Avonlea.
The pig drawing was just terrible. I'm sorry. Some of the animal drawings, like the horses, are longer than they are tall. It's just like, maybe these are some kind of like Celtic Prince Edward Island ponies or something. I don't know.
It reminds me of Shirobako. The episode where they have Shirobako is an anime about making anime, and there's an episode there's a sequence in there where the characters in the anime are riding horses, and there's this mad scramble to find an animator who knows how to animate a horse. Because everyone just knows how to draw cute moe girls, it's a lost skill.
Actually, I think it was the Realist Hero in the Kingdom series that's ongoing. It's just finishing up this season. Their horses are terrible. Their heads are just not the right shape to the body. I'm like, what the hell's wrong with you people? What you want to hire somebody who can draw a horse? And then looking at these pigs, I was just like, wow, there's no detail. It's just like this generic pig-shaped pig. I'm like, okay. I get where we're focusing. We got other things going on than dealing with the animals. Let's just skip that. Don't look over here. Look at Anne. Look at Anne.
Exactly.
Anne's over here. Look at this beautiful Norman Rockwell background.
Right.
I love that big fat cat. That really large cat with the kittens, and they're just like, okay, and they just come out, and then they're just like, okay, we're gonna sleep here now. We've slept all night, but now we're gonna sleep here.
Yeah.
Yep. Because cats.
Yes.
Exactly. Because Totoro. I mean, cats.
Yeah. Well, exactly. And then Anne wakes up, and again, I think we've all had this experience, waking up as a kid in the morning, and just having that moment of still being kind of dozing as you're waking up, and just kind of feeling the day as you come in. And again, we just kind of hold a bit on the light coming in from the window that Anne is seeing up there. It's a lovely moment. And Anne gets up, and
again, look at those door frames. Look at those door frames.
Yes, I know. But again, all these little things where she gets up, she looks around, she's thinking, and she looks over, and Takahata gives us a shot of the chair. Anne realizes that Marilla picked up her clothes. And so that's registering. And then Anne gets up, struggles to open the window, which is again is kind of foreshadowing for later on this would not be a problem. She's a scrawny little kid right now. But she opens the window, and we get probably one of the classic Anne shots of her opening the window.
I half expected to hear them. It's just like,
the hills are alive with the sound of music. Yes.
Yeah, that's very much the moment as she gets to see Avonlea and a beautiful spring day, and all the different environs therein. And I also like how this is establishing Green Gables itself as well. Just like what the house looks like, what this feels like, like you guys are saying, the specific flora and fauna of the environment is what we should get used to.
And somebody took so much time getting that exterior house shot.
Oh gosh!
Holy cow!
No.
It was like Anne is this little blip in the window, but somebody was out there with like their ruler and like getting all the angles right. You're like, oh, here we go. Call an architect, someone.
Yep.
I mean, they pulled out the stops on this.
Yeah.
I mean this. I mean, I know I'm going to say it over and over again, but visually speaking, this is a probably one of the more beautiful animes I've seen.
Yeah.
And I'm applying it to what I see today.
Yeah. 1979.
Yeah, not just in that 1979. I mean, it really is.
Yeah.
It's full on one of those where, like, just getting some of the background, the lane with, again, the birch posts and stuff. You could have that framed on somebody's wall,
Yeah.
and it could be a complete background cell, and you'd be like, "Oh, well, that's a beautiful painting."
Yeah.
Like, well, yes, it is. But it's also an anime cell. It's not just like somebody's art, oil painting artwork. It's an anime cell oil painting artwork.
It's mind blowing.
Yeah.
For a TV show.
Right.
Oh gosh.
They sold this the hell hard to get that much ability to do.
Yeah. Steve and I were talking about, you compare this to Mobile Suit Gundam. And like the character animation of that and all that, and nothing against Gundam, but just the contrast. My gosh.
Yeah.
Wow. All little things. Oh, little Totoro in the center there. Yeah, and Anne just gets to experience a beautiful morning.
Which again gives you that terrible heart-rending
Yeah.
moment. It's like, here she's looking at all that she could have. Will she? Will she get to be here in the end?
Dun, 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 dun,
Yeah.
dun.
And so we get a bit more kind of establishing Anne and Marilla as they interact for the first time. And
With Marilla's cheery face.
yes, exactly. But I do like how Takahata does show that Marilla's processing. She's not ignoring Anne. She's hearing all this stuff. Oh, wait, you're cheerful this morning? Like, despite everything that's going on, you still find joy in this? That's remarkable.
Yeah.
And so...
No, you know what? That's very true, because as she's walking through the house, when she discovers that Anne's not going out to play, I mean, here's the reasons why. And and here's a great part of this, is that Marilla's moving through the room. It's cutting back and forth between the two of them.
Yeah.
But she's moving through the room, and you are able to track her moving through the room. Like, you're not... It's not just like, I'm in the doorway, now I'm at the other doorway. She's tracking because she'll stop. And as you were saying, process. She's holding the jar, and the whole point of holding that jar from Marilla is for her to actually hear what Anne is saying, not ignoring it, and then processing by looking down at it and going, all right, okay, and then taking a few steps forward to the other door. Great, good stuff.
It's really impressive. So Anne comes down, has her morning, and then and again to your point, she, Anne says she can do the dishes, and Marilla's like, can I trust you? Okay, we'll see how this goes. And lets Anne do the dishes, and sure enough, as far as we can tell, Anne does the dishes. It's like, okay, that's good to know, duly noted. And then we get this little moment of Anne not knowing how to pat down a mattress because she's never had one before.
Yeah.
And Marilla going, okay, we'll just do this. And Anne does that. It's like, oh, okay. So you can do a thing. I can teach you a thing, and you can do a thing. Duly noted, right?
Yeah, Marilla's not much on spontaneity.
No, she's not.
No, she is the long form thinker.
She's a thinker.
Very regimented, very methodical.
And you see that in the cellar.
I'm gonna make I'm gonna make a detour into Terminator 2.
Wow, Marilla is a robot from the future.
Yes.
I never knew that.
I was just watching a YouTube video with a therapist reacting to Terminator 2 and talking about Terminator 2 from the perspective of therapy, and particularly difficult mothers. Because Sarah Connor is a very difficult mother for young John in that movie.
Yeah.
And he talks about how, like, one of the infinite number of personality profiles, he said there's one thing is the idea of an analytical person, and that analytical people tend to show love through analysis, through here's what you should do. You skinned your knee. Well, you shouldn't have been out there, running along, because if you weren't running, then you wouldn't fall and skin your knee. Nobody takes love through analysis, by the way.
Yeah.
But Marilla is very much that, right? She's analytical, she thinks through, and when she's talking to Anne, she's thinking in terms of how do I, instruct you? How do I tell you what to do? But she's not thinking about emotional support in any way, shape, or form.
Which we understood immediately as soon as
Yes,
Matthew
exactly.
entered the house. Marilla's not good emotionally.
Ooh,
At least to start.
at least a start. And then we get a scene that hurt me. Like, I felt physical pain when I saw this moment. Because Marilla says, when you're done with this, you can go out and play.
Mm-hmm.
And so Anne runs down, opens the door, and stops.
Yeah.
And we hold on this shot for like 20 seconds. And you realize Anne can't bring herself to do it. She can't take in that much joy. And as she says later, she's like, if I go out there, I'm going to fall even more in love with Green Gables. And I just can't do it.
Yep.
It's like, and again, the emotional maturity.
Yes.
And realizing that about herself is really impressive.
Yeah, most 11-year-old kids would be like, so, you know what I mean? For her to be able, especially for a child who has such a, grand imagination, for her to be able to pull a parking brake right at that moment is just like, that aches. That aches doing that. Because it's like, that just totally quashes your youthful, childlike joy. Jeez.
And so, and then again, sort of slightly subverted when she says, have you named your potted plant yet? Like, what? Excuse me?
What the hell?
I like giving names to things, so let's name the potted plant. All right, fine, whatever. Crazy little kid.
Which, if you think about Bonnie, is an interesting reflection of Marilla's domesticity and her very much buried aesthetic for beauty. You know what I mean? It's not a medicinal plant. It's not a plant that serves any other purpose. It's not on the table. It's in the windowsill where it gets light and it gets watered. It's like, that's a little gap in Marilla's personality.
Well, you note, they have wallpaper.
Yep.
This is clearly a well-decorated house.
Right.
Yeah, so there's something there. Absolutely.
Well, I think wallpaper, for better or for worse, you could argue the pattern of it is nice, but, wallpaper is better
Not
than
crazy.
plaster.
Yeah.
That plant serves absolutely no function.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's like the wallpaper maybe, I don't know what wallpaper would do other than a plaster wall. It's decorative. It doesn't stop bugs from getting in. It doesn't insulate anything. So you mean that's a useless decorative thing. But that plant has absolutely no need to be in the house.
Yeah.
And yet Marilla has it.
Yep.
Like, okay, so maybe
Kinda
lady, you're
like
not
Anne.
yeah. So maybe you're not such a bad lady. Maybe. We'll see how it shakes out.
We'll see how it goes.
Let's see how therapy and Prozac works.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, back in those days, it called farm work and drinking.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And then this long sequence, and what I find interesting is in so many other anime series, if you want to stretch it out, you add filler. Takahata adds montage. And just we have this long moment of Anne just sitting there processing at the table as we just pan around Green Gables and the environment around it. And again, we're kind of in Anne's world as she's thinking about this place and what it already means to her. It just sucks us even further.
Yeah.
Then she goes off to live in the cave with her. No, wait.
And then again, Takahata, as Anne goes off, and then proceeds to to say goodbye to Snow Queen and to Bonnie.
Sayonara, Bonnie. Sayonara, Snow Queen.
Because we set that up in episode 1. She says, "I'd like to give names to things, say goodbye to things, and I leave them." And yep, that's what she does. And Matthew sees that and even runs after her for a little bit. Oh. But this is why Takahata is not in his grave with the fireflies mentality. Because what I so appreciate is that even after that moment, the final moments of this episode, even though Matthew can't quite get the energy to work, it's like, oh.
Yeah.
Anne then tells Marilla, I have determined to be happy, nevertheless, and to enjoy this ride anyway. And seeing Marilla's expression at that, and ending the episode there, is such a lovely way of pulling it back and saying, yes, this is sad, but, we all know where this is going, right?
Yeah. Back to the orphanage. Oh,
yeah.
Wait. And the series ends.
Yeah.
And done.
Right.
Cutscene.
But thank you, Takahata, for not leaving us on that note. Because instead, Anne is a cheerful girl. Like she pushes through. That is the first 3 episodes of Anne of Green Gables. What are your guys' thoughts at this point?
Anne's chatty.
Yes.
Very,
is she
chatty?
Oh.
And it's I'm curious to see the shenanigans that Anne gets into, because I have absolutely no doubt that kind of imagination unleashed is going to lead to hilarity.
Oh yes.
And some things that we have all discussed in other contexts, like yes, it does lead to hilarity. I'm pleasantly looking forward to the series, even though it's 50 episodes. Holy cow!
Episodes. Jesus. So like I said, I've never seen this before. I've never read. I'm familiar with the books. I'm the middle kid between 2 sisters, so I know they read it. I've been more familiar with the television show only because I've seen a couple of the shows, only because it came on after Degrassi High on that. I forget which channel.
Oh wow!
Right.
So I think that was
Well,
Adam Lee on the Disney Channel.
Was it?
Is that on the Disney Channel you were watching?
Was it? No, it was. No, we're talking network.
Oh, okay.
Network back in the day. Back in the day, I think.
Interesting.
But yeah, so it's
ABC
so you get a flavor.
Special.
And in this very special episode, don't play with the gun. No.
Fan gets black lung in the mines. What? No. Go ahead.
No, but it so I had a flavor of what Anne of Green Gables was about before going in. So there was no really shocker or surprise as to what the story is. Right. What got me? I did not think that I would hate it. I did not think I would enjoy it. But when I watched it, and I'm watching all the colors and the thoughtfulness of all the shots and things like that, and even the song didn't annoy me. They periodically throw in there, sometimes the songs I'm like, oh, stop.
Enka singers.
Yeah. But it was just, it was like, I keep harping on it. It's just visually, it's just a very beautiful anime. And there's things you're going to get out of watching this, even if you don't really care for the story. There are things you're going to get out of this that you're going to be like, I'm not seeing that today. I'm not seeing that. And that seemed to be not only something forward thinking in terms of animation back then, but it is still today. And I found that very interesting. And I will have to say that thus far, Matthew is my favorite character.
Yep.
Him and his bushy mustache. Yep.
And I'm with you there, Steve. Like when I went back to watch, and so I went back to watch when I first came across Anne. I was going back and watching all the anime that was coming out 40 years prior. So I went back a couple of years ago and was like, okay, what was airing today or this week 40 years ago? went back to that, and so I was watching the original Gundam and oh gosh, Captain Future, and the Ultraman anime series, and Green Gables, and I was like, okay, I'll give this a try. I figured like any old Otherworld Masterpiece Theater, it'll be quality, it'll be nice. I'm intrigued, and as you both know, I was sucked right in. Like my gosh, this thing is impressive. Yeah, there's a lot going on here. I mean, Ghibli is well known for naturalism as kind of its watchword for its animation, and I think here's where you really see that in full bore, where everybody is moving and talking in a way that feels very natural, but doesn't feel boring, doesn't feel dull. It's always representing character. And you get moments like you're saying, panning around that room, a very natural thing to do, but just communicates a lot that you wouldn't get in the typical modern anime.
Well, I also enjoy watching some of the technical aspect, like when she and Matthew are in the trap and they're coming back to Green Gables, and you're seeing their movement. Then you're seeing the background layer moving in perspective, and then you're seeing beyond that like a third layer that is moving and receding, and then the fourth layer in the background that is also moving, and it's just like, wow, your multi-plane kind of camera, it's got this really neat perspective where you're on kind of Matthew and Anne's level, and you're watching literally the countryside roll with them behind you, and it's just like, it's very interesting to see that technically. I'm like,
then you probably appreciated the scene. You just reminded me of it, actually, of when she's looking out the window and she's seeing the rustling of the trees.
Yeah.
And there's just like one movement behind the other.
Yeah.
And you're just like going, nobody today would actually put that much thought into it. It would just be this big green bushy thing going, whatever, and that's it.
Yeah, I love this moment when she's seeing the sun through the trees. And they just animate this sparkling effect of all of the the light filtering through the trees. And again, it works really well, but you had to think through all that and how all those things would move. I'm not sure if they actually had like a full-scale multi-plane camera on this.
Well, they had. I mean, how do you do that if you don't?
I think they were literally dragging cells. Because I say that because
really well.
Yeah, and I say that because I was looking through and I was like, I haven't yet seen a shot where you can see ballistic movement, right? Where like you're zooming in and out on things using the multiplane camera, which I'm sure they would have done if they could have. So they may have had a multiplane camera, but it's possible they didn't, which is amazing.
Or they were fiddling around with some kind of concept of that, because you figure by the time you hit the late 70s, everybody's seen Disney's multiplane camera.
Absolutely, the multiplane camera existed in Japan. I'm saying I don't know if on this production they had one.
Right.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, quite the show. Pretty darn impressive. One other thing I want to mention before we wrap on this is the music in general.
Right.
One thing I found interesting about the music is, other than the giant upswell of Beethoven in the middle of this, the music is actually fairly restrained. It definitely works into the show, but it doesn't feel like that thing where the music telegraphs the emotion you're supposed to feel.
Right.
It just feels like it's complementing what you're seeing on screen.
Or that you feel compelled to buy the one song that's going to be the hit for the next J-pop band.
Yes, exactly. So I just really appreciate that they don't push the music too far, but it definitely fits into the show as well. Cool. Yeah, that is Anime Gables. Anything else you guys wanted to mention?
Just thanking God I didn't have to think that hard about this one.
You could just enjoy it.
Just enjoy it.
Well, and that's the thing that's fun about it is it is an older anime. And no, there is not giant fighting robots.
No.
No.
but it is entirely engaging. You know, it's like when I sat down and watched the first 3 episodes and then watched the next 3, my first thought was like, this is probably going to be a lot more literary than I'm going to want. Can I fit this in for time? And I want something exciting going. Nope, thoroughly engrossed by it. I'm like, this is really visually good to look at all the stuff that's going on. The story's compelling. She's an interesting kid. These are 2 interesting older people and trying to deal with their problems. I'm like, that's much more engaging than I anticipated.
Yeah. I haven't seen episode 4 yet. I'm a little bit scared too because they show the archival memory thing. Yeah. And just from the images alone, I'm just going, particularly the last image they showed, I'm like, no, it's heavenly. Can we just look
Steve,
at it, Snow Queen, please?
Do you have any objections, Steve, to her being sold off to work in a fishing vessel?
Yeah, kind of.
Don't watch the next one.
No.
She becomes a scullery maid on the
Titanic. Yes.
No.
I got my free ticket. Oh no, honey, no.
Oh, we know how this
And
is.
she's rescued and washes up in Germany. No. It's one of the nice things, and not to get into any spoilers from later on in the series, but it does maintain sort of this upbeat tone, where it never. I shouldn't say it. I mean, it definitely gets melodramatic at times. There's definitely sad stuff that happens, but it's not that. It's not Grave of the Fireflies, which everyone is kind of. I think a lot of folks are waiting for it to turn into because it's Takahata. And it's restraint. So next week we will be back with episodes 4 through 6 of Anne of Green Gables, which will kind of tie up the first arc of the story rather nicely, and we'll see where we go from there and how much more of this we analyze. So that'll do it. We're going to take a quick break for just a few minutes, and then we'll be back to talk about more modern anime and the latest anime news. I'll actually be talking about some older anime as well, even than Anne of Green Gables. We'll be right back.